Alright, no fucking around. Today's the 17th of May, it's day 90. I have finished my 90 days off video games, and this will mark the 104th day of no marijuana. I figured I would do a reflection video here, and I've made some notes this morning when I got up and kind of thought about how things have rolled out for the last 3 months. When I started doing these videos, my intention wasn't to create a channel that got a lot of views. It was to put on physical record the journey from the start to the finish, and use the time that I gave myself to talk as if I was talking to someone else, so a partner or a friend or whatever, and get my ideas and my thoughts that I was having out into the open, and then see whether or not they were thoughts or ideas that I agreed with, and to also make a space to be frustrated, make a space to be demotivated, make a space where I could admit to mistakes, that sort of thing, without having to do it in my head and get stuck in that self-recrimination trap that people tend to get into a habit of doing. And I think for the 90 days that it actually worked. I think it's been good to focus 15 minutes of my day on thinking about how I'm feeling and then verbalizing it. Whether or not other people pay attention to that or not is not necessary. It's more that there's a physical record of it, and that I've been able to do it. And because it's being recorded, it's forced me to be a little more aware of what I'm saying, aware of the ideas that I'm having. Some things that have changed over the past 3 months, and the things that I'm looking to try to push into the future. Have been more productive. I've hit all of, if not all, 90% of my goals that I've set. I've been able to make. Weightlifting gains, gaining weight and general gains, maintaining food and supplement intake, my work taskings that I set myself every day. I've been able to get through all of the work that I have for each day. I've been able to increase my social presence with, like, visiting with friends and spending more time out physically being social, and some financial goals as well we've been able to tackle and actually get behind us. So yeah, so I've been more productive, and at the very least I've been able to accomplish the work tasks that I've set myself, which prior to this year I would do work, but I wouldn't get everything done, and then I would end up piling everything into a Friday, and then Friday would end up being a big day of work, and I would rush through it all just so I could get it finished. Whereas my Fridays recently haven't been that busy. It's been kind of nice to be able to button off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and not, because I've done everything Monday through Thursday, I have very little to do on Friday, and that's how I have always visualized that I would want my weeks to go, is work hard Monday through Thursday, and then Friday take care of loose ends and that sort of thing. I've been less angry. People who knew me years ago used to say that I was an angry dude, and I always used to argue with them about it because I never felt like an angry dude. But since I started, or since I got off the marijuana properly, and I think it was about week 8, week 9, that I really noticed the difference, because normally I would get to 6 weeks and then I would stop and then I would go back, and that would be my detox break. I would take a 6 week break from marijuana and then I'd go back and get on it. But this time around, I went to 8 weeks and then 9 weeks and started to have that settled sense. And when I went looking for it, because like I said, I've always have very little issue with being able to tap into the anger. But when I went looking for it, I realized that there wasn't much there. And when I had to explore that, and I talked about it with my therapist briefly, so many of the small things have been going right that I didn't have any kind of I didn't have any backed up emotional things. There was nothing backed up that I needed to deal with, and I didn't have these like random outbursts of rage. I remember what started all of this was playing cards with a friend when I was still doing magic like a crazy person, and I had a couple of decks that just weren't popping off, and I had 2 games in a row that I just lost really badly, and I was furious. I was furious about the fact that I was losing, and when I got off with my friend, I just went into this like downward anger spiral. But I searching for it even now. I can't it's a little embarrassing to think of having that kind of an emotional outburst at 38 or 37 at the time. Because it was a huge overreaction, and it's what there was a lot more wrong than just losing the games. And when I go looking for all that stuff that was wrong, I just can't find it. It doesn't seem like it's there. And that the unhappiness that I got, or the unhappiness that I felt when I was in those positions, or when I was in that state, was tied to so many other things. And having spent the last 3 or 4 months rectifying each of those things in small ways, taking bite-sized chunks out of the problems, I feel like maybe those things have sort of bled out and they're not there anymore. And if they are there, it's minor frustration more than anger so much. So I'm less angry, and that's actually been really great, because people that are angry don't tend to last. Well, I say people that are angry don't tend to last that long. My personal feeling is if I stayed on that path, that I would develop more health problems as I got older, and I don't want to be like that. There's a time and a place for anger, and I can still whip up a pretty good rage when I want to, but I haven't had any need to, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be a part of my character. Spent less money. One of the big things that's changed over the last 90 days is that we've had more money to throw at the credit cards and the short-term debt and stuff, because I haven't been spending $300-400 a month on dope, and that's been a real blessing. One of the things, and particularly with the video games too, is not spending as much money on video games. I used to have the Xbox Pass, so most of the games that I played were on it. I really only ever bought brand new games for the PlayStation, because it had the exclusives that I was interested in. But I haven't been spending on games or marijuana, and as a result, that money's been able to go to more productive use. And having seen the difference in our finances, it's one of those things that I'm loath to want to change. I've felt more mature. Day to day, I have felt like more of an adult. My relationships have become more mature, particularly my relationships with people that are older than me. I get the sense that by taking myself a little more seriously and not kind of holding on to that extended adolescence that I was trying to chase with marijuana as one of the reasons why I did it so much. I said in my book that my dream for a long time was to wake up, get high, have breakfast, and then work, and then just get high all day while I was working. I thought that would be a life that I would want. That was the life that I wanted. When I came up with that idea, I was like 20. And I kept that with me up into my mid to late 30s, which is embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but at the same time, it's telling. It's telling of someone who has an addiction to a substance and who feels good on the substance, wanting to find a way to weave it into every part of their life. And since I stopped and since I took it more seriously, and particularly since writing the book, again, I'm still waiting on my friend to get back my notes. But the book being finished and essentially covering what I wanted it to cover, writing it and rereading it to edit it, made me realize how those relapses never allowed me to really step out of that adolescence. And I know 3 months isn't a long time to make a big change like that, and I'm certainly not finished with the process by any stretch. But I feel more mature, and I feel like the people that I know in my life who are older than me are taking me more seriously, because I'm taking myself more seriously. And it's making me realize that I want from people that I interact with that they take themselves seriously. Because if they don't, how can I be expected to take them seriously as friends or colleagues? And I think that's a useful feedback. I think it's a useful sort of top-down process or a flow of respect. They say if you don't respect yourself, why would anyone else respect you? I think the same is true for being mature and making good decisions. And that's one of the reasons why I struggle with so many people today who don't take themselves seriously and who make bad decisions on the frequent, and then wonder why their lives are shit and blame it on everyone else. Anyway, I have also been able to make better choices more easily. Now, I've written in caps here, not all choices. I still make some bad decisions, but they're in such small amounts that they don't have a net negative effect on my life. Like, for example, if I choose to have one extra beer while I'm hanging out with a friend, that'll be the difference between get up peppy and get up dry and a little hungover. But better choices in general, and for bigger choices particularly, I feel like it's been easier to make those choices. Getting up at the right time every day and making sure that I do the basics, making sure that I eat when I'm supposed to eat, when I have scheduled to eat, that I do these talks in the mornings, that I make sure I write my journal every day, that I keep my appointments, that I use my calendars, and I use my phone calendar and make sure that I set up notifications for all the things that I have coming up so I don't forget anything. Because I'm scatterbrained, and if you're not already using the calendar in your cell phone and you have your cell phone on you all the time, then you're a fucking idiot and you should be doing that. Because it takes 2 seconds, or maybe not 2 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to 30 seconds to hit the microphone and says add appointment reminder blah 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 for this time on this day, and the phone does it for you. You don't even have to punch it in yourself. Like, it's that easy, and it's been a godsend for me getting my calendar synced up so that I've been able to keep track of everything I'm doing. Press the button, 2 swipes, there's a calendar that tells me for the month all of my appointments, and that stuff like that, making better decisions in small ways across the whole day and across the whole week, has made my life a lot more smooth. And I don't forget the things. I don't have too many things that are sprung on me at the last minute where I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. If I do, it's things like I forgot to take the laundry out. I forgot to take washing out of the washing machine, or I forgot to close the fridge door after I went in and grabbed some. But that hasn't happened in freaking forever either. So, but yeah, I've been able to make my life choices more easily and make them in better ways, or ways that are better for me and my partner, my wife. So that's been good. Great. It's actually been great. And I feel that it ties in with the feeling more mature. At some point, you kind of have to give up the comfort and get back to the grindstone. And I find that that the grindstone is more rewarding than the comfort. And then the last one that I have here is that I'm more engaged in my own life. I feel like when I was high all the time, it was easy for me to see the things that weren't good, and most of the time when I was stoned, I would focus on that. If I was getting in my head, or if I wasn't distracted by something, I would be thinking about all the things that were wrong, or not going well, or the failures. And I found that marijuana became sort of a distraction from facing up to the fact that I wasn't living up to my expectations for myself. And having put it down for 3 months, put it down for 90, well, it's 100 days now, put it down for over 3 months. And again, it's a small period of time over the course of a life. But I feel like particularly the last 2 or 3 months, or the last 2 months in particular, I have felt more engaged in my own life. I've been more engaged in wanting to pursue my friendships and my working out and my fitness and the rugby refereeing, getting back into that in a more active way and taking it seriously, but at the same time like reminding myself to have fun with it. Being more engaged in my relationship, in my marriage, having more to say to my wife and being more available. She always says that she never really minded the stoned me all the time because I wasn't a true deadbeat. Like I wasn't a true burnout. I wasn't a loser, and I didn't beat on her, and I didn't make her feel bad when I was high. But I was doing it to myself a lot, and her observation this morning when we talked about it was, she's like, you did all this yourself. I didn't ask you to quit. You determined that it was bad for you, and you decided to do it yourself, and I'm really proud of you for that. And it's nice to know that even as a stoner, I wasn't a bad partner necessarily. But I've become a better partner having not smoked for the last 90 days. And that she recognizes that this was something that I did myself and not something that she asked me to do or that the therapist suggested or anything like that. And I take value in that personally. I wrote down a question here, which was, what did I miss? Honestly, there were two things that I missed. When I was hungover a couple of times, and I say hungover, I mean like I had a couple of beers and I woke up dry in the morning. I haven't been like properly drunk the entire time I did the quit. But in the mornings when I woke up feeling dry and gross, and it was raining, and it was like a yucky day, and it was, I knew I wasn't going to be leaving the house, I missed marijuana and video games on those days just a little bit. Because those were the days when, at least in my experience, those are the days when you sort of appreciate being high and having something fun to do all day, when you don't really have to do anything serious. You've got all your other stuff done and knocked out for the week, so you can take a day to just chill. But other than that, I miss nothing. I didn't miss anything about being a pothead, and it bums me out thinking about getting high now. I got offered, I have been, in the last couple of weeks, I've been offered smokes several times, and every time I was offered it, immediately my brain would just jump to 4 hours ahead of myself. I'd get high, and then in 4 hours time I wouldn't be high anymore, and I would want to get high to get back to that good feeling. And knowing that then I would have to go buy more, and I would have to give up essentially on the accomplishments and the forward movement that I've had, it bums me out. Like, you get high and you go to sleep, and then you wake up in the morning, that's fine. In fact, I had a friend I used to work with years ago who that was the only reason he used marijuana, was to help him with his insomnia, because it would put him to sleep. But for me, I get high at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I I have to do it every 3 hours after that. Otherwise, eventually, if I stop, I'm gonna feel like grainy and rinsed out and kind of tired and lethargic and not attached, not engaged, until I have more. And then that's where the expenses would come from, is constantly having to do that. And so when I'm being offered, a bowl or a pen or whatever, it's like, no, I don't want to. In 4 hours time, I don't want to feel like I'm coming down from a stoner. And then what did I learn? What did I learn over the last 3 months? I learned that getting high was not as good as I made it out to be in my mind. I learned that the glamour of it was something that I had carried with me through an extended adolescence, and that as a young person I had glamorized the use of it, particularly because it really fit me better than alcohol ever did. I was never that big of a fan of getting drunk, whereas getting high, I loved it because you didn't have a hangover in the morning, and it made you feel good, and it made other things feel good. But I learned over the last 90 days that it was built up. I hyped it a lot. And that getting high was one of those things where it was the chemical response to the addiction, and feeling like you're settled when you're high all the time was a part of the addiction. And that I don't want to be an addict to that. It's expensive, and it made me feel like a loser. And it made me act like a loser in a lot of ways, and that's something I don't want to have that behavior. I learned that withdrawal was one of the things that kept me going back, so I didn't feel bad. Like I said, when people offer it to me now, I think about when I'm going to feel withdrawn later, and how that's going to feel unpleasant, and I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to get high in the afternoon and then still have to spend 6 hours of the rest of my day withdrawn from marijuana, with the dopamine and the serotonin nice and low, and thinking, oh, what can I do to get back on the wagon? I learned why I don't want to go back, which is what I just talked about. I learned that's why I don't want to go back to using. And I don't know how long it's going to last. Someone asked me, like, what's the plan going forward, and I said, well, I know that I don't want to go back to being a user, so I guess that means that I need to put it behind me. But it's a hard thing to say because I've been attached to it for so long. I learned that making small adjustments is the trick of tricks to making real changes for me. And small adjustments it's not really a small adjustment to just throw marijuana out the window and say, like, I'm quitting, I'm gonna go cold turkey. But saying that I'm going to do that, and then finding small things in my life that I can change to help support that decision, has been what has allowed me to stick with it. These videos, the writing in the journals, the communicating more with my partner and my friends, and getting more FaceTime with my friends, and after the decision that I made with politics, particularly to try to be the change that I would want to see, try to be the type of person that I would want to see other people be, even people I disagree with, act in a way that I would want to see them act, so that what I'm at least bringing to the table is reasonable and approachable. All of these small changes have really been instrumental in making the changes stick for me, and getting me to the point where I need to be, which is where I am now, which is sort of facing down the next whatever. In my book I talk about going from 90 days to 90 weeks. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these videos less every day and one every week, up to 90 weeks. It's a long time, but it's a commitment that I can make. And day to day, I felt like in the early stages there was always something to talk about, whereas nowadays I find myself kind of rambling on, and things that I could just as easily talk to myself out loud that don't need to be recorded. But I think once a week there's enough sort of things to talk about that I can jot down in the notebook over the course of a week, and then look through and make a video about things. Crikey, that is a green background. So yeah, I don't know exactly where it'll go from here. Like I said, I think probably once a week will be enough. What advice can I offer? That's a good one. Actually, that's the one I really wanted to get into. What advice can I offer? The first thing I would say is, for anyone who's watching this who wants to do a quit and wants to stick with it, is make a decision on what you want to do. Be specific. Make sure that it's measurable and that it's attainable, that it's something that you can actually do. If you think 3 months is too long, then make it a month. Make it 2 weeks. And then when you hit the end of 2 weeks, make it another 2 weeks, or make it double that. Maybe make it a month after that. But whatever you do, make sure that your goal is attainable, measurable, and specific. Say exactly what it is that you want to accomplish. And then once you've decided on it, make small changes to your life. For me, one of the big ones was with eating and drinking water, getting more fluids in, and eating more frequently during the day, but not eating as much. I know when people quit marijuana, it can be really difficult to stick with it. And one of the things that doesn't help is your appetite comes and goes rapidly. What I found was it was easier to eat snack meals all the time. So instead of having 3 big meals, I would have 3 snack meals during the day. And those snack meals it meant that I could eat, a small thing of hummus, a couple of cheese sticks, and like 4 slices of salami. It's not a huge meal, but it was enough to keep me going. And if I did that 6 times a day, that volume of meal 6 times a day, I was able to keep my calories up enough to maintain my energy level. And then eventually I got used to that habit, and those snack meals got bigger and bigger, and so now I'm in the point where I'm putting on weight. That was a small change that I made. Another small change was getting the journal and being disciplined about writing in it every day, even if it was just 5 minutes. Like some of the entries that I wrote in here were 8 lines, and basic stuff like not feeling great today, woke up with a headache, or feel really good this morning, stiff from the workout the night before, haven't had any cravings, haven't been thinking about too many things, wished I had video games yesterday because I got quite bored while I was out in a doctor's office sitting there with nothing to do, nothing to read. But I did it every day. And that was another small change that I think helped. And if you make those small changes, you have your specific goal, it's measurable and attainable, and then you make these small changes, you can stick with it. The other thing that I would suggest is if you have real issues, and your marijuana use is mental health related, stop kidding yourself. I think you and I both know that the marijuana isn't helping your mental health. Go to a therapist. Go, and if you can't afford one or you don't have insurance, look up whatever city or state welfare programs there are for people to be able to access mental health professionals or drug abuse professionals. There's plenty of hotlines and free phone lines that you can call in to talk to people about your addiction or about your behavior. And at the very least, you're going to be talking to someone who's trained more than you are about the reasons why you might be using. But if you can get a therapist to help you, get a therapist. Shop around, ask them all different questions, ask them, find the one that works for you. If the first one doesn't, try another one, until you get the person that challenges you, but also makes you feel like things are accomplishable. And then finally, make use of your friends. If you have friends, I know with COVID everybody's been stuck inside a lot, and there's a lot of fear out there about going out. I didn't stop. In fact, if anything, during COVID, we saw our friends more during COVID than we did prior to COVID. And I think that's one of the things that kept our spirits up, was the social interaction. And I realized that in the event of a pandemic, I wouldn't want to lock down, and I don't think many people would want to lock down. You want to have your friends and your family around you so that they can support you. This notion that we should be isolated in our homes is fair enough, I guess. But A, it didn't work. It didn't work in the States, at least. And B, it caused a lot more mental health problems and addiction problems than anyone was predicting. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I think we have yet to see the true cost of isolating from friends and family. And particularly if you're a young person and you haven't hung out with your friends, be the boss of your friends group. Call them all up or message them, or however it is, Discord, Kick, whatever the fuck. Get them together in one place, in a social place, and hang out with them. Because the human experience is a social experience. We associate with others, and that's how we get the benefits of being alive. And if you're isolated from people and you're using a lot of drugs, that's probably one of the reasons why you're using a lot of drugs, is because you're isolated from your people. Anyway, that'll be it for me. Like I said, I'll try to figure out what the plan is going to be going forward. I know I don't have a huge amount of subscribers, and not a lot of people are watching these videos, but I still want to use the space to talk my things out. And maybe I won't, who knows. But the main thing is, I hit 90 days, I did it clean, I didn't falter, I didn't have a half smoke, I didn't smoke a spliff, I didn't play any video games. So 90 days is over. Today I'm going to go pick up my mate's PlayStation. I'm going to play Ghost of Tsushima this afternoon. Going to start that. Pretty excited. And date night will be starting back on LA Noire. Excited about that. But marijuana is behind me at the moment, and I'm with the help of my friends and continued good behavior and continued good decision making, it will remain behind me. If I have one last thing to say, it's that my wife and I are trying for a kid, and I want my kid to come up seeing his dad not an addict to a chemical. There goes the washing machine. It's kind of hard to ignore when you listen to the entire song, and it's amazing how long they allow the song to go for. It's like, see, just keeps going. But yeah, I want my son to grow up with a father, or daughter to grow up with a father. Let me rephrase that. I don't want to make it seem like I want a daughter less. Actually, no, I do. It's like 99.99999% want a daughter versus 100% want a son. And let me explain myself before I piss everyone else off. There's a lot of things that I've learned as a man that I want to pass on to my son and to my children in general. But if I have a son, there's a lot of knowledge that's male specific, that's man specific, that I want to pass off to him. And I don't want him growing up with a role model, with his primary role model being me, addicted to some chemical. I understand the effect of that, and there are other better ways to show how to cope with life than by chemical dependency. And I think that's one of the things that I want for my children in general, but particularly if I have a son, I want that for him, because if he can learn how to cope with life without needing to be dependent on chemicals, then I've succeeded in one very major way as a father. Alright, that's it for me. Thank you, universe. Thank you myself. Thank you my partner, my wife. Thank you my friends, those of you who have watched and who have been encouraging. I thank you all for your words of encouragement, and I will hope to see you all again here on potentially in the future. Ka kite.